How's it guys, Carly? I hope you're all doing well. So this is a follow-up on the actual Viking shoot. So I've had quite a few people ask me, but how do you edit all this stuff like you were doing? Because we sort of seen what the image was like, and then it looks like way different in the editing process and everything else. So what I've done is I've actually taken one of the images that I actually did. It was the one where we had the two TL60s down the side. So we had orange and stuff down on the side of the face of the model. And also then down on the side. So it just created that sort of rim um, of like a fiery rim, like because the main thing was I wanted to do a lot of stuff where there was a lot of flames, fires. They've just sort of raided a village and burnt the thing to the ground. And this is what the Vikings were known for. So I just wanted to actually create that type of that look and feel. And then obviously the key light was the LA600R, which I did actually change the color temperatures in the shoot on some of the images, and then made it also daylight as well, which was the Kelvin 5600 light, which is what I did on this image. So backgrounds. What I do is I tend to use AI to create my backgrounds. I don't tell AI to create my model and to put my model in on the background and stuff like that. It's not something that I want AI to do because it has no reference point for the actual model and doesn't have the information that it needs to think. So it's going to actually it's going to recreate it, and it's going to change the structure of the model. It's going to change face structure. It's going to change face shape. It's going to change probably arms. It's going to change a whole load of stuff that I actually don't want it to change. So what I do normally is I will tell AI, right, I need a background image. It needs to be high resolution, 4K, 6K. I'll just give it all the blurb. And it needs to be a realistic photo. Okay, so it needs to be photorealistic. Then I tell it also to be a cinematic type of image as well, 16:9. And it goes off and it actually creates that. But then I actually tell it some of the other details where I need flames and I need ambers. Okay. So with that, it's got that sort of information that I need it to actually create. Then I would use my image that I did shoot, and I would actually upload that and say, this is a reference image. Okay. Do not put this into the background. Um, this image is just a reference to show you how the lighting is. Okay, so basically it will show that we have the red down the side and that type of thing, and it uses that as a reference. Then it actually creates the actual background image. So I'm going to show you what is created. I'm just going to change the screen so it comes up so you can actually see Photoshop next to me while I'm actually busy with the actual edit. Okay, so let's have a look at the image. All right, so this is the image that AI actually created for me, and I'm quite happy with it. I didn't sort of play around with it too much. So this is straight out of what it actually created. I just made sure it was a true 16:9 because sometimes it just generates a 4:3 type image. So I've extended it a bit with generative AI to actually create a proper 16:9. All right, so that's the image. I'm happy with that. I mean, I could add in a bit of coolness into the sky area just to make it a little bit more dramatic and stuff like that, but I'm not going to stress about that too much. I want to get straight into the actual edit itself. All right, so let's have a look at the studio image that I shot. So this was the actual studio image that we actually shot. Now you can see down the sides of the face, down the side of the arms, the side of the body, on the axe face, on the fur. You can see tinges of all this warm orangey red light that we created using the actual TL60s. The white light is all from the LA600R. So that was the actual key light, and that was actually lit on with a strip box. It was a 30 by 120 Godox strip box that was on the LA600R, and that is what lit up as a key light on the actual model. Now, this was shot as a portrait shot. All I did was I just extended this to also a 16 by 9 um, image, so that it's sort of an even sort of shape across the background. I'm not too worried about any of this type of info that's on the background, sort of lines and shadows and stuff like that, because we are going to be removing that within the actual edit itself. All right, so I'm going to untick that one. This is now the base edit that I'm going to be doing. As you can see, I've done some dodging and burning. You can probably see a bit of over the actual fur there, and a bit of lighting here and stuff. Also, again, not too worried about that at all, because we're going to be incorporating the actual image onto a background, and we will be blending that in using hard light. Okay, so if I actually select this layer, you can see I've actually got my overlay type as hard light. So you've got soft light, you've got hard light, you've got overlay. I found that the hard light would actually work, so I'm going to set that to hard light. I then drop my background in. I'm just going to disable this mask because I'll talk about that just now. So then I drop my background in. And so my background, as you can see, it's very red, very, very red. So we're going to work on this. We're going to actually clean it up. We're going to lighten it up. We're going to use some masks and stuff to actually just enhance the image and bring Alicia um, a little bit more separated from the actual background. Let me just show you this mask. I'm just going to disable the subject layer, and you'll see the mask. So I haven't blended everything on there, because what I wanted to do is all part of the actual blending. I want to make sure that we've still got some sort of coloring that is in there from the actual background to try and give it that sort of realistic feel. I mean, this was just a quick scribble with the mask. I mean, you can get a little bit more sort of accurate with these type of things, but it was just to show you that that mask is actually created there. If I take my brush and I go into my mask layer, I can remove it. If I go back onto my black, I can bring it in. And also you can set your brush size. You can actually sort of set the opacity as well on that. But generally, just blending in on that to bring in your layer. Now you'll see just down at the bottom here where I brushed in, you'll see that there's this light little mark that is actually there. So we want to actually take that away. So I'm just gonna take my brush, and on this side as well, just take my brush so we don't see that white mark. And also, yeah, and anything there, just make sure that that is blended. So I'm happy with that. So we can not see any of the white coming along the edge of that. Now you'll see here, you may see like a little bit of difference in this. Now I'm going to put this in and sort of blend it so it's looking red just from the actual environment that she's actually in. So this is actually taking the background color in onto the actual arm sleeves. Definitely going to add in a bit of this to pick up from the actual environment, the actual background. So this is the actual background actually coming through. So I'm just sort of painting in around the mask. I mean, you can spend hours on this. You can spend minutes on it, just getting this sort of right and looking cool, but I won't spend too much time. I'm just gonna try and get through the image as best as I can, as quickly as I can. So already the image is actually not looking too bad. Um, then I've got a brightness and contrast level, so you can just sort of do some adjustments on that. Then I have a image levels. Now the image levels is going to start sort of brightening up the image a little bit, especially around the background. So if I uncheck that one, you'll see the fire and the flames around the smoke is getting a little bit more brighter there. Then I have this one, which is the eyes layer. Now, obviously, to me, eyes, being a portrait photographer, eyes are important. And for the eyes to actually be right, I want just to make them a little bit more brighter, a little bit more sort of standing out a little bit. Not too much, but just to give us um, that lightness in the eyes. So I've created a curve, literally like push the curve right up, and then added a mask to actually give me um, just the eyes to actually be enlightened there. So that's just to actually light up the eyes a bit. I could actually create another one and brighten this one up a little bit more, but I thought I'm not going to worry about that too much. But the eyes are now brighter in there. Another one we did also on the facial construction side was a saturation layer. Now you'll see the lips. The lips to me is just a little bit too red and stuff. So what I did was I created a saturation layer and I've taken the red, so I've highlighted the red on the actual layer itself, and I've taken it down to around about minus 20, I think, minus 30. There you go, minus 30. So you'll see the lips change, and it just takes that sort of bright red away from the actual lips. Happy with that. So the eyes and the lips are done. Next thing I'm going to do is just do an overall curve on the actual image. So this is going to give us a bit more brightness in the actual image itself. Okay. Then I did a bit of also another saturation, which was a flames restorer, which I did have, where you'll see the flames this side would just go a little bit darker, and you'll see this yellow on the arm here, because obviously where we actually had an overlay hard light, it it did change the orange to maybe a little bit brighter, more of a yellow. So I want to tone that down. So I created this layer just to tone that down so it becomes a bit more orangey and a bit more orangey on the arm of the actual model. Then I desaturated the reds. So basically once I got it to this point, I want to now pull down that redness on the actual image. So pulling down the redness actually helps also just to create that sort of separation as well, that it's just not all red in your face and stuff like that. So that was just desaturating the reds and desaturating the overall image, and we did do the actual reds on there. So if I click on the reds, you can see that we've taken down the saturation minus 16 on the overall image on this. Next thing that I like to do, especially when I'm doing these type of creative shoots, is actually add a bit of clarity. Well, probably quite a little bit more clarity than I would normally add into, like if I was doing another type of shoot. But with these type of things where it's sort of a fantasy blending background sort of character, I like to add a bit of clarity in on the actual image. So the clarity, I've done a plus a plus 6. Now you can go take up this clarity up to quite easily. We can take it up to 19. And then I'm gonna come in here, and that is what that actually looks like on there. All right. So that is about it. I think that is all the stuff that I've actually got in on there. So from that to that. That is what we've actually done in the actual editing process from that to that. There's one thing that I do want to actually push home, and that's when doing shoots like this, um, your lighting has to be right. Don't expect AI to do your lighting and stuff like that, because then you're not really taking the photograph. You're you're getting a software, um, or you're getting a computer to generate what you should be doing in camera. Um, when you actually get your lighting right, this type of editing becomes easier and easier and easier, because you then have an understanding of that light and not relying on AI to do your lighting, to do all that type of stuff. So I have my subject that I took a photograph of. I lit that subject to the way I wanted it to be lit. Then I asked AI to create me a background according to what I actually created. And then I basically built the edit and dropped the image in on that background to actually create that. So just bear that in mind when you are actually shooting. Make sure you doing the lighting. Don't ask AI to generate all your lighting, because if you do that and a client comes and says, "Oh, I really like that," and you now got to try and replicate that in camera that you did in AI, it's not going to really work. And also, as I mentioned before, I don't want AI now trying to change my model from the way she is to the way that AI wants to do it, and it will be different in every single image. So that's how I do it. That's how I work, especially around these type of images. I obviously don't do this on my business portfolio and my business headshots, but definitely around the actual creative side of things. That is how I sort of do my editing, and it isn't. It can be a slow process. It can be quite hectic, but I think the more you do, the more you get used to. And there is different overlay blending. As I said, you've got overlay, you've got soft light, you've got hard light. Depending on what the image you're actually creating is going to be, the actual overlay for that specific image. So that is it. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope that has actually thrown a bit of insight onto how I did the Viking edits, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again on Getting to Grip soon. So cheers for now. I'm Carl Daniels, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.